Are you ready?
Let's get it.
All right, yo, what's up? It's your boy D Starks.
Starks Artist.
And you're tuned in to the Rediscovering podcast, where we talk everything faith, life, and culture. We here.
We are here, bro.
Yeah. First, I want to say thank you. Birthday was yesterday. Big 2-0.
Yeah.
Y'all know how we rocking.
20.
Thank you for all the love and birthday wishes. I'm just full of gratitude. It was overwhelming, but in the most positive way possible. All the messages, everyone reaching out. I appreciate y'all. We appreciate you all. Just supporting us, rocking with us for however long we've been doing this. I can't remember nowadays.
Yeah, we just hit 100K on TikTok, you know. So
yeah,
pretty big milestone.
Yeah, another milestone that was huge.
Thank y'all for that.
So yeah, I try to get back to as many comments and messages, DMs as possible. So yeah, I just want to say thank you again. That's all we got for y'all. It's always love, for real. You already It's
bro.
Always love. Y'all know what it is.
In.
For L twin. For L twin. For L for real. But yeah, just huge thank you for everyone. And yeah, we're gonna keep going. It's just a start.
It's just a start. We're going up, bro.
Just a start. So
what we getting into?
Yeah. Well, you gonna let them know?
Oh, okay. So basically today we're gonna be touching on burnout.
No, yeah. So I had mentioned last week, we talked about idols.
Right.
And briefly I mentioned that God was highlighting a lot of different things to me. You know, I was pondering on life going into my
pondering
20th year.
That's that 20-year-old
something else that I guess he had really been teaching me or bringing me through was understanding burnout.
Right.
And how to really deal with it, because that's a state or a phase I was in, particularly earlier this month. And I think it's something that we've all experienced.
Oh, for sure.
In one way or another. Whether you're a full-time, part-time student, taking however many credit hours.
Yeah.
Then on top of the homework outside the classroom, clubs, student orgs. Then if you're working on top of that, and then also trying to pursue your dreams outside the classroom, and then trying to maintain your relationship with God.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Or if you just working a job, you got gas, you got insurance, you got to pay for groceries, bills, probably provide for your family, whatever it is. From me saying, do what you got to do, maintain your relationship with God, and try to balance all these responsibilities and everything that's going on.
Right.
And so in all of that, it can always be hard to find rest, or at least know what that even looks like. Going, not even necessarily going through the motions, just trying to survive day to day, and even just reach greatness, be great, be successful.
Yeah. We
can find ourselves at some point to where we're just mentally, spiritually, emotionally exhausted. Just at the end of ourselves, bro, I can't even do it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'd rather just chill, forget it. Right. And that's where I was sort of at early this month. Just at the point to where it's just bro, I just want to completely chill, go out. Get a cabin in the woods, forget everybody, I'll just forget the school responsibility that I don't want anymore.
Yeah.
And it really gets dangerous or scary when the very thing you love becomes the thing that you find yourself despising.
Very.
That you don't want to do anymore. All the things you found joy in, whether that be sports, whether that be in, running, walking, working out, music, your creative outlets, you don't even want to do those anymore. That's, but that's where it can lead to if you don't manage it well. Yeah. I think a part of the reason I had got there is the fact that whenever I was feeling burnt out, I would take some time off, but I didn't really rest.
Yeah, that's good.
And I want to start there, because I think a lot of us are not actually finding true rest. We're just being distracted.
That's good.
And I mentioned it last week, but it's we're finding our rest in the world, but not in God. Which doesn't always come from a ill or bad intention, right? Because that can look okay, I said, mentioned last week, yo, maybe let me take a little vacation.
Yeah,
right. Oh, I need some time away, right. Or entertainment. Let me take some days to just enjoy March Madness,
right?
Or look at these movies or whatever it is, and which isn't inherently wrong, or those things actually aren't unproductive. But if that's the totality of what you're allowing yourself to rest in, then you have nothing that's actually filling you up.
Yeah, that's good.
Because those other things will be able to provide you some relaxation. They won't be able to bring you any restoration, and that's what comes from God,
right?
And that's where we have to be seeking God for in these different moments, is that restoration and getting filled up by Him, because we can just take that time to just relax and just chill, to get distracted and take our mind away from all the responsibilities we have or the things that we need to do, which is productive, which we need that time to just enjoy life,
exactly.
Right? And what's around us, to be able to find us some type of comfort. But those things won't ever be able to fulfill what God can. And we can't try to, and we can't be under this misconception that although I'm feeling relaxed, that somehow I've been poured into.
Yeah.
And like that's what happens. Like like I would, take some time off to do X, Y, and Z, not actually running to God, and I come back finding myself in the same state I was in.
Same
before.
position, bro.
The same position. Yeah. So I think that's always important to know, because that's where it started for me, that realizing like, I'm not even resting for real.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I kind of found myself in that same mode. That's a good point. Like, not just resting itself, but knowing how to do it correctly, right? And I think a big part of sort of presenting this burnout is not just learning how to rest, but when to rest. And I think you kind of touched on it earlier, and I feel like it's a topic that we probably heard a lot of people talk on like plenty of times, but I kind of want to give you a new perspective on it, because I was reading an article, and it kind of, the way it approached the topic of rest, like I've never heard before. So it was talking about how obviously God rested after he created. And then it kind of talked about how bears hibernate, and then even plants, like in their production cycle, there's a season of dormancy. It talked about how bees and ants harvest in specific periods. So it was talking about when you look at life as a whole, you will see this natural rhythm of work and rest, right? Like the importance of it is literally laid out in everything you look at, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we as humans have created the possibility to work outside of this creative rhythm. Because when I was really thinking about it, I started thinking a little deeper on it. Like, we as humans, like, where do we come in and where do we play in this sort of rhythm of rest? And I think it was really the sun, right? I think it was the sun and the moon, and the interchanging of the two kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It kind of like transition our days for us. It's like, oh, the sun's down, right? So it's time for sun's down, so it's time for our rest, right? Like, the moon's out, time for the rest. But I think it's when we created like electricity and light, it was kind of like we had the ability to bypass that, like, that moment of rest, because it's like, okay, well, sun's down, but I can turn on this light, or I got this fire, or whatever. So I think the point I'm really just trying to make is that we are trying to work outside this natural rhythm of the world that God created for us, right? And that isn't me saying that you can't ever stay up late to like work on things or hang out with friends or whatever you're doing, but in fact, I think in certain seasons you'll have to sacrifice some sleepless nights, right? So that's not what I'm saying, but I think the issue is when it gets to a point where it's excessive, that's where the problem lies, right? I'm just making the general statement that when you look at life as a whole, like the importance of work and rest, the balance is there, right? So that's why we have to understand, like, it's important to take this rest. If God took a rest, you look at everything, like it's the symbolism's there. So yeah, I think when I was reading this article, it brought out that really good point that we need to understand the importance of rest and how that's shown in life.
So it's crazy, because I was going to mention that, like, in this, like, I guess right now in the world, society, like in general, we're kind of like glorifying like this whole like grind culture.
For sure.
You feel me? Like this nonstop productivity and work of, it's like resting is almost like a sin. You feel me? It's like, like, ain't you know how people always put in like story. It's like no days off. Like no days off. Like you like grinding 24/7, but it's like, nah, fam, you probably really do need the day.
For real.
Like, and I'm all for like consistency whenever it comes to certain things. Of course, like we're reading your Bible, working out, whatever it may be. But in certain situations and scenarios, whatever that may be for you, you definitely need that time away to just get your mind right, get poured back into. And I think sometimes we can get so caught up in just work, like this hyper productivity of like, I can't take a break,
right?
And feeling this immense pressure to like be keeping up with whatever it is, and not actually taking a step back and like, because it's like, and this was my problem. Sometimes it's like I'm wearing my burnout as a badge of honor.
That's it right there. Yep.
I'm going through life. I'm thinking about, I had all these. I had that sleepless nights, man. Like I'm grinding. I'm putting in 40+ hours a week. I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, like, why am I carrying my weight around?
That's a bar.
Why am I carrying my weight around? And I saw a post about that had really slapped me in the face about, like, having an extreme, like, overwhelming anxiety and stress, irregular sleeping habits, on the verge of depression, not working out or whatever it may be, all for the sake of the grind. Why are we putting that on a pedestal?
Right.
Why is that something that's like, seen as, oh yeah, you really doing it. You on the grind right now. You doing that thing.
# grind life.
Chill. But I think that's where it stems from. I'd be like what you just mentioning that, like, we have the ability to like now like always work,
right.
And we're society or culture, like I said, when we step in the kingdom, things change. It just, we have like this constant like pressure to always be doing something, to always be productive, to always be in some type of work mode. But like even God took a day of rest.
Yeah.
Right. And he also wants that for us. And that's something to always realize, because that pressure is definitely still there, like you mentioned earlier. And then also something else I wanted to like really touch on is the fact that we were on live, I think it was about, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. And shout out Seth, our guy Seth.
Shout out my boy.
We were talking about burnout, and I asked him how he dealt with it, and he had a really good perspective that really changed the way I looked at it completely. But what he said is that you have to work from the Sabbath, not to the Sabbath.
That's so tough.
You have to work from the Sabbath, not to the Sabbath. So basically, his analogy was like, I'm working from the energy I got from Sunday, and not me on Friday saying, oh snap, can I just make it to the weekend?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If that makes sense. So basically moving out of this survival mode of like, oh snap, I just need to make it to this next break, this next weekend. Oh, spring break's coming up. Oh, we got a day away from classes. Oh snap, like I'm able to like take some days off work in like 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And finding your rest and resting, finding your rest in God, and ultimately resting from the Sabbath or day of rest, whatever that looks like for you, to get you through like whatever the week is or what the period is.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because like, and it's crazy. We had put something on our story today, and it was like, what is a lesson God's been teaching you this year? And someone said that you can find peace within your season, not just when you get out of it.
Man.
Listen.
Man.
Y'all be preaching.
For real.
You can find peace within your season, not just when you get out of it. And I don't think we always realize that. So going back to like resting from the Sabbath, it's like finding that rest and that peace within your everyday and working from that. Working from the strength that God's giving you in the quiet time you intentionally get every morning. Yep. Or at night, throughout the day, or on the weekend, or whenever your day of rest is, whether that be a Saturday, a Sunday, a Monday, or a few days. But working from that, and that's always going to like help you get through those moments of like burnout, and for you to have longevity and enduring things. Because like without his strength, we're nothing. John 15:5. Apart from you, apart from him, we're nothing. So we have to always make sure we're connected to the vine, every single day. And he also mentioned that taking advantage of the Sabbath is the biggest part of working from it.
That's good.
So you, like I mentioned, it's not always about, oh crap, let me just like sit down and watch TV. We have to be intentional about these days that we have. So I know I have 3 days off. I know I have this hour period from my work, from school or whatever. Let me use this time intentionally to make sure that I'm getting poured into and filled up, so then I can work from this.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes we do have these Sabbaths, but like we can't work from it because we get nothing. We can't work from it because we don't get anything while we're in it.
Exactly.
So like if you can leave your Sabbath feeling full, your energy is then restored for you to continue to work.
Exactly.
And that's always super important to understand. It's like when we get into burnout, what happens is we don't always give that time to God. And we have to realize that we're not failing God when we're in our season of burnout. We just have to give it to him.
I like that.
Like, because sometimes you can feel like you are, I don't know, like, dang, I don't know that you fell away or you took some too many steps back, that you should have been on it. And like we always talk about, like with shame and condemnation, that always pushes you away from him. But he wants you to give your rest to him. Yeah. Like to really give your rest to him and bring it to him, so he can then, like, he's a restorer. So he can restore you, not only, like I said, from like traumatic experiences or after a season happens, but while you're going through it. And so, yeah, I think that's important to understand, that just being intentional about it and working from the Sabbath, not just to the Sabbath and always in some survival mode.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think that's a good point. Even when you were kind of talking about earlier about people who, you know, there's like this grind culture we got going and people are kind of afraid to take breaks in a way. I think I was, at one point in my life, I was afraid to take breaks because I felt like I wouldn't get back to that same type of consistency, right? But like we're talking about, I mean, resting the right way will always push you towards the right direction and not pull you from it. So it's really a matter of if you're resting the right way. So yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think I was thinking about the topic, and I think another part of burnout is just that your output is outweighing your input, right? And you're pouring out more than what's getting poured into you. And I think we're all going to go through a point in our life when we need to realize that what got me here isn't going to get me there. I kind of look at it, it's like a video game. You know how like in a video game, you go to the next level, you kind of got to like upgrade your weapons, your health, your energy, like whatever it may be. You have to upgrade that. I think it's the same way in life sometimes. Like your capacity has to increase with each level. If you go to this level with last level's capacity, you'll end up on E, right? With like the destination nowhere in sight. So I think when that happens, you'll end up trying to give something you don't have. So I think that's a good point. You're also talking about how we get ashamed in our burnout thinking God sort of, or like we drifted away from God. But I think in some seasons, just He's calling us to a new level of discipline. He's calling us to stretch our capacity to something greater. So I think if you're going through a season of burnout, you need to ask yourself why, because there's always a root to it. And that reason isn't always, I drifted away from God, but maybe He's calling me to a new capacity. He's calling me to expand. He's calling me to a new level. I think that's sometimes what it is. It's just you have to expand your capacity.
Even to like expand that capacity, you need Him to do that. Right? Like, so you have to be in a position to where you're willing to be poured into so He can take you to where you need to go. Yeah. So that's why it's always important to take those moments and times of rest. Like you mentioned something, like a lot of times people, like they don't want to rest just because they feel like it's going to put them behind. Like they don't want to take any break or a day off. And it goes back to even the grind culture of like this mode or idea of like just consistent work, productivity, like in an excessive way. And what I found is, for me, that's where I was at. Like, I didn't want to take a break because I felt like, oh, snap, if I take even 3 days off or 2 days off, then that's going to set me back. Like, I'm not going to reach the level of success that I want or my future or where I'm intended to be because of some time I need to actually get back right to pour out. Right. And then I realized, like, I was really attempting to, like, put my future in my own hands. And the reality of the fact is, like, yo, if I'm really walking with God, staying true to His plan, being obedient, then there's nothing I will miss.
That's good.
But in that mindset and in that mode, it was like, oh, snap, like, yo, this has got to be 24/7. That's going to be 40 hours a week. And now, somehow, some way, like, I'm in a position where I'm trying to play God's role. I'm trying to take His seat. Right, and operate like on my plan, on my time frame, on how I think it should look, on how I want it to be, instead of just like listening to Him, knowing His word is true, and like realizing, yo, what, like, you know, me in this state of just complete exhaustion to the point to where I can't do anything anymore isn't of God. And so if I'm stepping right, if I'm stepping correctly in His plan for me and His comfort, He wants me to find rest. He wants me to have peace, right? So if I don't have that, then something's wrong. And so that's what I had to realize, because it was just like, oh snap, like what am I going to miss? Like is there a door, is there an opportunity that's not going to come my way if I don't do X, Y, and Z? And it's just like, you know, it's not the case, and not putting myself like on that seat or on that throne and letting, like, just be still and let God be God. Yep. You know, even in that rest period, like there's, you know, what is for you, you know, will come to you, and it's not anything that you're gonna miss. Exactly. You know, and a part of that is in that it was like I lost track of my why. Like anytime I've ever felt I was burnt out, I lost track on why, on why I was doing what I was doing. Right. And it was like knowing I need to rest, but why am I not? Like knowing, okay, yo, you need a break. Because for me, it was like, since January, I knew it was time to, like, yo, take 3 weeks off. Right. Take a sabbatical, whatever it is. But looking at why I'm not. And sometimes that can come from, like, a sense of, like, pride. And me losing my why, because I want success so bad. Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes it can, whenever, you know, you're in school or you're working, a part of this can be like, yo, me just chasing my dream. And I want it so bad. I'm looking for success. I'm looking for numbers. I'm looking for a bigger following and audience, increasing the brand, and not serving God. Right. And for me, that's where it came from, because I lost track of my why, and I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, you know. Yeah. So like, yo, I'm going to school, just going to school, doing the student orgs, going to work, doing all this, and just going through the motions. My why isn't there. My sense of purpose to glorify God in everything that I do is now off kilter. It's no longer there. So I'm not finding any fulfillment or anything from what I'm doing day to day, which then leaves me lifeless. That's good. And then to that point where I'm getting exhausted, because it's like, bro, what is this for? Right. Well, like, what am I getting from this? And it's because I'm not allowing God to like be with me every step of the way, and being solidified in my why and what that is. So I was thinking about that. But how do you practically, we talk about resting in God. Sometimes I don't think that's what I'm learning to do.
Yeah.
How do you do it? What's that actually even look like in going through it when you are in the mode?
I think practically what resting in God looks like is exactly what it sounds like resting and sitting with God. But resting is a process. You don't rest for a second and get back up. Because I think I found myself in these modes where I was doing everything I needed to do. Like I was running to God when I would get tired. I was praying instead of Netflix, or I was reading instead of watching some random YouTube video. But I felt like I was doing these things, but the strength and the rest wasn't necessarily coming right away. And God kind of laid the scripture on my heart. It's Isaiah 40:28. It says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." So in the scripture it says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength." Like that's a promise. Like your strength will be renewed, but it doesn't necessarily say when. Like there isn't a time frame attached to that. So I think I was getting in modes where I was doing all of that, but I wanted it to come right away. But resting is exactly that. I had to sit in that. I had to rest in that. And it'll come. Like that's a promise. It will come, but it's not something that's necessarily going to come right away. So basically, to sum that all up, my advice for resting in God is if you feel like you've covered all these bases and you're still not feeling all the way energized, it says in the scripture that your strength will be renewed, but it doesn't necessarily say when, right? So I think resting in God is literally that. Like you have to rest in that, sit in that, lay in that.
They know what Mad City said though. Wait on the Lord.
Man, they know about wait on you. Y'all know about it.
No, but for real though, and I like how you said it's a promise.
Yeah.
It's a promise. It's
It says will.
Yes, will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Of me continuously getting in his presence, seeking him, and doing it diligently, that rest, that peace, that comfort, that what surpasses all understanding is ultimately going to find me in that season, in that moment of rest. Like it always will. Like every single time, no matter what it is. Like I think sometimes that can go back to even really practically, like like you start praying, or you're in worship, or sometimes you go to church, you're not feeling it. Like you don't want to be at church, you're not really in the mode, or you're feeling it. But like as you press through that, like 15 minutes in, it's like, oh snap, okay.
Yeah, it's like the barrier.
Yeah, you breaking down those barriers in 20 minutes, and it's like that presence now. It's like you feel that, and that peace is now like over you. So even in your day to day, that's what I would say in terms of like resting in God. I mentioned this on the live, but I'm realizing that the Sabbath is every day.
That's tough. The Sabbath is every day.
The Sabbath is every day. Like it talks about in Matthew 6:34 that like, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. I mention this a lot. Like every day is its own lifetime. So with that being said, the Sabbath must be incorporated in that. Like that's what I'm finding in my rest, like in my quiet time with him in the morning, in the middle of the day, when I'm on my way to school, when I'm on my way to work, whatever it is, like before I go to sleep at night, that's where that rest comes from. And then like, if you're doing that every day, I'm working from his presence, every moment, every hour, every minute. And that's how you like stay continuously like consistent with that. And it, like it just comes down to, the foundational principles of like keeping a relationship. It's just like communicating with him and getting through those moments that you may not feel anything or nothing's coming, because that's really helped me. It's just like finding rest in that day to day, particularly like in the morning when I'm going through that.
Exactly.
So like I mentioned earlier, we put something to pull up our question, our story. Somebody mentioned about what God was teaching them is that a part of their problem isn't necessarily their lack of trust in God, but their lack of hope in everything else. Does that make sense? Like it went over my head for a little bit, but when I really thought about it, it was low-key a deep thought. It was their lack of hope in everything else. And I think what I got from that is they, it's like, I believe God. I found rest in him. But for whatever reason, I'm finding a lot more comfort in these other things. Like I'm feeling a lot more satisfied in whatever it is that is replacing him. Mm-hmm. Although I know he's good. I've seen he's good. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, my hope still is rooted in more things than they are him. And I think that comes down to really what my point was, is what I wanted to make is knowing your first response or being aware of your first response. Right? So is it to worry or is it to worship? Mm-hmm. Is it to pray or is it to complain? Is it to surrender or find your own way? And when it comes to, okay, finding rest in God and, I'm feeling this burnout, I'm exhausted, what's your first response?
That's good.
Like checking that and then ultimately losing your hope in everything else in the most positive way, and like standing on the solid foundation, the solid work of who Christ is and what he wants to be for you. Mm-hmm. And like, understanding those, whatever it may be, those like the place or the role, these other things that can bring relaxation or comfort in your life, but ultimately letting God be the first response for everything you do, which I think it always just starts there. Yeah. It always starts there with like having that the first response and that being the priority for everything I'm doing. I want to take my my exhaustion to and all of that.
Losing hope in everything else. I like that.
No, yeah. So that's really kind of what I had in terms of like, practical stuff. You got anything else to, some nuggets of wisdom to leave the people with?
Yeah, one last thing I think, questions you should ask yourself whenever you're getting into a place where you're starting to feel a little burnt out is, kind of just recapping what we said. I think the main questions I try to ask myself is, am I not resting enough? Am I not resting the correct way? Or do I need to increase my capacity? I think those are the main questions. And I think those are the main questions you need to ask yourself to reflect and really make sure you're in the right mind space when you ever get to a place where you're feeling like you're kind of burnt out. So that's kind of what I want to leave the people with, the 3 question.
Oh, yeah. And I guess I had another one that, like I just mentioned, it's just like, what is your first response? And looking at that and letting that be God, and then understanding like, what brings relaxation and who actually brings true restoration to pour into your life so you can continue to fill out, and resting from the Sabbath, not to the Sabbath, and realizing that's something you actually do every day.
That's good.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? We'll see y'all next month. It's not even next week. It's a new month.
I forgot it's a 30.
We're going to a new month, so let's do it.
We'll see y'all next month, man.
Let's do it big. But look, stay you.
Stay real.
And stay humble. Much love.
Y'all stay safe out in the streets.